My parents did everything to hold me back and refused to pay for my college, claiming it might hurt my sister's feelings. So I moved out. Years later, when they went broke and needed help, they came after me. Hey Reddit, my parents always played favorites. So I said, nah, screw them. Built my own life and moved on. But those people weren't done yet. Before we get to that, let me start from the beginning. I'm a 27 male with a sister, 29 female. In our house, she was the golden child, and I was background noise. Here's the thing. Some people think favoritism in families is just small stuff, like one kid getting a little more attention or being praised more. Nope. In my case, it was full-on in-your-face favoritism that everybody could see if they looked close enough. The thing is, my parents worked really hard to hide it from the outside world to relatives, grandparents, neighbors. They acted like we were this perfect little family. My mom especially knew how to turn on that fake smile. When company came over, suddenly I existed. Suddenly she'd ask me questions like, how's school going? Or show grandma your drawings. But the second the door closed behind them, it was like a switch flipped and I was back to being second place again. Birthdays were the most obvious. My sister's birthday was always this huge event. We're talking balloons, banners, fancy cakes with custom designs, piles of gifts stacked so high you couldn't even see the table and guests. They'd invite her whole class and then some. It was basically a festival for a kid. Meanwhile, my birthdays were like, here's a cake we picked up last minute from the grocery store, maybe a card if we remembered, and 2 or 3 family members who happened to be around. I told my sister about this, and what she said left me speechless. I said, why don't I ever get balloons or parties like you? She smirked. Because nobody cares about your boring little birthday. Mine's fun. Yours would just be embarrassing. Competitions and school stuff were worse. I was actually good at a couple of things in school. Not bragging, but I had talent in certain subjects. Teachers encouraged me to join contests, and I wanted to. It would have looked good for me, and also for them as parents, right? Nope. They flat out forbade me from joining. Once when I was 14, I was invited to this regional competition. I told my parents I got invited to regionals. The teacher thinks I could actually win, but my parents sat me down and told me it wouldn't be fair to your sister if you won something she couldn't. And she said, please, like anyone wants to watch you. If you embarrass yourself, don't drag the family name down with you. I remember just staring at them. Like, is this real life? They weren't worried about me. They were worried my success would make my sister look bad. That was the pattern. Every time something good was about to happen for me, they'd block it. My sister, on the other hand, could do anything she wanted. Dance lessons, singing classes, art workshops, you name it. They threw money at her hobbies even if she quit 2 weeks later. If she got bored of something, no problem. Let's try something new. Me, I once asked to take a class for something I liked, and my dad laughed and said, we don't waste money on things you'll never be good at. That one stung. And I was only like 12 at the time. There were times when I thought maybe I was overreacting, like maybe I was just sensitive or imagining things. But then my aunt, my mom's sister, started noticing. She'd pull me aside and ask if I was okay, or she'd give me a little extra gift on my birthday because she knew my parents weren't going to bother. She saw the way they treated my sister like royalty while I was just there. And she made it clear she didn't agree with it. I think she was waiting for the day I turned 18 because she always hinted that I didn't have to stay in that environment forever. Looking back, I think my parents wanted to keep up appearances more than anything. They wanted the family image. 1 daughter, 1 son, a happy house, supportive parents. But behind closed doors, they had already picked their favorite. By the time I was a teenager, I had kind of given up on expecting anything from them. I stopped asking for birthday parties. I stopped asking to join things. I just focused on what I could do myself. But even then, they still found ways to remind me I wasn't supposed to stand out. If my sister failed a test, they'd blame the teacher. If I got an A, they'd say, well, it's not that hard of a subject. Like, they couldn't let me have even a tiny win. I did well in school. Not genius level, but I studied hard. I got good grades, and my teachers liked me. I wanted to go to college, not just any college either. I worked hard to apply to some pretty decent ones. And when the acceptance letters came in, I got into one of the best programs in the area. I still remember opening that email, feeling proud of myself for maybe the first time in my life. So I showed my parents expecting at least a smile, maybe even a good job. Instead, my mom's face went flat, and my dad literally sighed. I thought maybe they didn't understand what it meant. So I explained how competitive it was, how not everyone got in, and how this could actually set me up for a good career. You know what my dad said? That's nice, but we're not paying for it. I laughed because how could he be serious? Wait, what? Why, he didn't even blink. We already have your sister in college. We're not stretching ourselves just because you want to go somewhere fancier. Fancier? My voice cracked. Do you even get what this is? People dream of getting in here. This isn't about fancy. It's opportunity. It's my future. My mom cut in calm but sharp. It wouldn't be fair to your sister. Imagine how she'd feel if you went to a school that's ranked higher than hers. We have to think about both of you. I stared at them stunned. You're joking, right? You're really saying I can't go because it'll hurt her feelings. You're being dramatic, my dad snapped. It's just school. There are plenty of colleges. You don't need to make this one such a big deal. Are you kidding me? My hands were shaking now. When she wanted dance lessons, when she needed tutors, you paid for everything. When it's me, suddenly it's too much, too unfair. Watch your tone, my mom warned. No, I'm done watching my tone. Every single time I worked for something, you found a way to shut it down. No competitions, no hobbies, now this. You just don't want me to outshine her. Admit it. That's enough, my dad barked. You think we're made of money? You think the world revolves around you? I think you never wanted me to win at anything, I shouted back. You wanted one star and it wasn't me. Silence heavy, and for the first time they didn't deny it. Now here's where my aunt comes in. She'd always noticed the favoritism, but I guess she didn't realize how bad it was until this point. I went to her house one night and I told her everything, how my parents refused to pay for college, how they said it wouldn't be fair to my sister. She just sat there staring at me like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Then her face hardened. Pack your things, she said. You're coming to live with me. Just like that, no hesitation. She told me she'd cover the tuition, the housing, everything I needed. You deserve a future. If they won't give it to you, I will. But it didn't end there. The very next day, she showed up at my parents' house. She didn't knock, she just walked in. And the second she saw them, it started. How dare you, she snapped. You're really going to sabotage your own child's future because of your twisted idea of fairness? My mom bristled immediately. This is none of your business. We're the parents. We decide what's fair. Fair. My aunt nearly laughed, but it came out sharp and furious. You call punishing one kid for being successful? Fair. What's wrong with you? My dad jumped in, his voice rising. Don't you come into our house and tell us how to raise our children. We have another daughter to think about. And she's fine, my aunt shot back. She's getting everything handed to her while you clip his wings because you're scared she might feel small. My mom's face went red. You don't understand the pressure we're under. We can't afford to make both of them happy. No, you mean you chose your favorite and threw the other one under the bus? My aunt said, stepping closer. He earned this and you're too proud or too petty to support him. Get out! My dad barked, his voice booming. No, she said calmly but deadly serious. He's leaving with me. And one day when you're wondering why he doesn't come back, remember this moment. Remember who walked away from him first. The room went still. My parents didn't say another word, but their silence was louder than anything. Then I was packing my suitcase quietly, folding each shirt like I was trying not to shake when my mom stood in the doorway. You'll regret this, she said again, her voice sharp and almost gleeful. You'll come crawling back when she gets tired of you. My dad didn't even look up from his chair. Just sat there pretending I wasn't in the room, like ignoring me would make me disappear. My sister leaned on the wall, arms crossed, a little smirk on her face like she'd already won. And then the front door opened. My aunt walked in. She didn't bother with hells. Is he ready? She asked, her tone like steel. My mom spun around. You're not taking him anywhere. He's our son. No, my aunt said, stepping closer. He's a kid you've been holding back for years, and now you're mad because someone finally noticed. My dad stood, finally breaking his silence. You don't come into my house and undermine me. We've raised our children just fine. Fine. My aunt's voice rose. Fine is when you actually support them. Fine is when you don't punish one child because the other can't keep up. You care more about your reputation than his future. My mom's face flushed red. You don't understand the pressure we're under. Stop, my aunt snapped. You've had years to fix this. Instead, you doubled down on favoritism and called it fairness. Well, guess what? He's leaving. And one day when he doesn't answer your calls, remember this moment. The room was tense, thick with words no one could take back. My parents glared. My sister rolled her eyes, but no one moved to stop me. I didn't even say goodbye. I just picked up my bag, walked out the door, and for the first time, felt free. My parents became furious because it made them look bad in front of the family. But they never told anyone the truth. So when I suddenly packed up and moved to my aunt's house, they had to explain why, and they hated that. Living with my aunt was a complete 180. She didn't just pay for my tuition, she gave me a home where I wasn't constantly reminded I was second place. She encouraged me, celebrated my wins, and even on bad days, she reminded me that I mattered. I told her I'd pay her back when I could, and she said, "Don't worry about that right now, son. Just focus on your future." All I could do was smile at her. Then I worked part-time jobs to cover my own expenses because I refused to rely on my aunt for everything. She never asked for repayment, but I wanted to prove I was serious. I shelved books at the library before class, tutored in the afternoons, and stood on my feet in retail all weekend. Most nights I came home exhausted, still facing hours of assignments. Every dollar went to food, books, and bus fare, sometimes skipping meals just to make it stretch. It wasn't easy, but I wasn't about to waste the chance she gave me. I also made a promise to myself that day. If my parents ever came asking me for help down the line, I would remember this moment. I would remember the way they looked me in the eye and said, "We're not paying for your future because it wouldn't be fair to your sister." And I would never forget it. Moving in with my aunt felt like stepping into another world. It was just different. At her place, I was just treated like a normal person. She didn't make a big deal about it. She didn't baby me, but she respected me. If I did something good, she said, "Good job." If I messed something up, she didn't blow up. She just helped me fix it. And she supported my college decision from day one. She even came with me to orientation, asked questions about housing, made sure I had what I needed. Meanwhile, my actual parents were doing damage control. They told my grandparents I moved in with my aunt just because it was closer to campus and more convenient. They made it sound like it was a mutual decision, instead of them refusing to pay for my future. But I didn't bother calling them out publicly. I just focused on school. I had space to think about myself. I worked hard, I studied, and I was actually doing well. Every small achievement felt huge to me. Not because of bragging rights, but because it was mine. Nobody could take it away. Nobody could say, "Don't do that. It'll upset your sister." It was just mine. And speaking of my sister, she wasn't doing so well. I'd hear little updates here and there from my grandparents. She had graduated from her program, but instead of actually finding a job in her field, she decided she wanted to be her own boss, which basically meant starting random businesses with no plan. First it was a small shop, then some online thing, then another project. Every single one of them failed, and every time my parents bailed her out. Whenever anyone suggested she just get a normal job, she'd roll her eyes and say, "Why should I waste time making coffee for strangers when I can be an entrepreneur?" And when her ventures collapsed, she always had a ready excuse. The market just isn't ready for my idea, or if mom and dad had given me more funding, it would have worked. It was ridiculous. She never once considered just getting a regular job. To her, that was beneath her. She wanted to skip straight to being successful without putting in the work. And my parents enabled it just like they always had. She'd come up with some new business idea, and instead of telling her to be realistic, they'd pour more money into it. Then it'd crash and they'd act surprised, rinse and repeat. By the time I graduated, I had more work experience on my resume than my sister did, even though she was older. And when I landed my first real job, it felt like I had finally crossed this invisible line. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was standing on my own 2 feet. After a couple years, I managed to save up enough for a down payment on a house. Nothing crazy, but it was mine. I'll never forget the day I signed those papers. My aunt came with me, and she cried. Not big dramatic tears, but just this proud, quiet moment. She said, "You did this all by yourself." All that time, my parents kept pretending everything was fine. At family gatherings, they'd talk about how both their kids are doing well. They'd brag about my sister's business ventures like she was some kind of mogul. They barely mentioned me, except in vague ways like, "Oh, yes, he's working now. He's fine." They never admitted I lived with my aunt for years. They never admitted they didn't support me through college. But here's the thing, I didn't even care anymore. I had my aunt, I had my grandparents, and that was enough. They were the ones who showed up for me. The rest was just noise. I also paid my aunt back every cent she spent on my college. It took time, but I made sure to do it. She tried to refuse at first, but I insisted. I told her it was important to me not just for the money, but to prove to myself that I could stand on my own. And while I was building my life, my parents were digging themselves deeper into debt. My sister's failures piled up, and instead of letting her face reality, they even took a loan so they could keep throwing money at her. From what I heard later, they even started borrowing from other relatives. They were so desperate to keep the golden child dream alive that they didn't realize they were sinking themselves. Looking back, moving in with my aunt was the turning point. It wasn't easy, but it was freedom. It was the first time I got to write my own story instead of being forced into the role of the shadow. By the time all this happened, I had been working at my job for a few years. Things were stable. I was paying my bills, I owned my house, and life felt good. For once in my life, I wasn't stressed about what my parents thought. I wasn't second-guessing every move I made. I was just living. And then 2 months ago, I got a promotion that changed everything. Now, this wasn't some tiny "we'll give you an extra dollar an hour" kind of thing. It was a real, proper promotion with a big raise. The kind of raise where you sit there staring at the HR email like, wait, is this real? Did they actually mean to send this to me? I'd worked my ass off for it too. Late nights, extra projects, going above and beyond when nobody asked me to, and it finally paid off. The first people I wanted to tell were my aunt and my grandparents. They were the ones who had supported me from day one. The people who believed in me when my own parents didn't. So I called them up and told them the good news. My aunt cried on the phone. My grandma said she always knew I'd do well. My grandpa told me I deserved it and that he was proud of me. That call meant more than the actual promotion itself. To celebrate, I decided to take them out to dinner. Not just any dinner, but somewhere fancy. The dinner itself was amazing. We laughed, we ate, we talked about all the struggles it took to get there. My aunt kept saying, "See, I told you it would all work out." She's the type who always had faith in me even when I didn't have it in myself. My grandparents were glowing. They told stories about when I was a kid, about how they always saw me as the quiet achiever, even if my parents never acknowledged it. I felt like my effort had come full circle, like I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. At the end of the night, my aunt snapped some pictures of us at the table. Nothing over the top, just a few happy shots. Later, she posted them on Instagram. She wrote this long caption about how proud she was, how she'd seen me struggle and grow, and how now I was able to enjoy the fruits of my hard work. I didn't think anything of it at first. To me, it was just a sweet post from my aunt. But of course, my sister follows her, and that's when the whole mess started. Apparently, she saw the pictures of us at the fancy restaurant and immediately flipped out. She sent me a message on Instagram. "Wow, must be nice flaunting money, while your real family can't even keep the lights on." I stared at the message for a while, trying to process the audacity. This was the first time she had spoken to me in years. Years. Not a "hey, congrats on the promotion," not a "how are you doing," not even a basic hello, just straight up entitlement. She saw me doing well, and her first instinct wasn't to be happy for me. It was to demand I share it with them. I told her, "I worked for this, nobody handed it to me." And she replied, "Spare me. You wouldn't even have a degree if Auntie hadn't rescued you. You think you're so special because you got lucky with a job." Then my parents jumped in too. They sent me this long message about how they had sacrificed so much for me when I was growing up and how it was time for me to do my son duty and support them. They said, "We took care of you. Now it's your turn to take care of us." I laughed. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Not because they asked, but because of the nerve they had to demand it like I owed them. My sister doubled down. She sent another message calling me selfish and accusing me of abandoning my family. She said I owed her too because apparently all her failed businesses were for the family, and I should be supporting her dreams since I had a steady income. She also said if you really cared about family, you'd invest in me. We'd all benefit once I blow up. I thought that would be the end of it, but later I ran into her on the street. Of course she couldn't just walk by. She had to start something. She crossed her arms and sneered. "Well, well, well, Mr. Big Promotion. Must feel good thinking you're better than the rest of us." I kept my voice steady. I don't think I'm better. I just worked harder. There's a difference. Please. If I had half the chances you had, I'd be running my own empire by now, she shot back. Chances? I raised an eyebrow. You burned through every chance you were handed. Don't blame me for your laziness. Laziness? She scoffed, voice dripping with sarcasm. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't waste my life slaving at some desk. I smirked. Entrepreneurs actually build something. You just drain wallets and call it vision. There's a difference. She lifted her chin, trying to sound confident. You'll regret cutting us off. When my next idea takes off, you'll be the one begging to be in my shadow. I stepped closer. Sir. The only thing I regret is giving you this much of my time. Enjoy your fantasy, but don't expect me to bankroll it ever. I turned and started walking away. Behind me, she snapped, her voice rising. You'll regret this, she screamed. You think you're better than me now, but you're nothing without us. Nothing. I didn't even look back, just kept walking, leaving her shouting at empty air. The audacity left me speechless. This was the same sister who had gotten everything handed to her on a silver platter while I was told to settle for scraps. And now, she wanted me to fund her lifestyle too. I later took screenshots of everything and sent them to my aunt and grandparents. My aunt called me within minutes, absolutely livid. I've never heard her so angry. She told me I knew they were selfish, but this is on another level. Then she called my parents directly. I don't know exactly what she said because I wasn't on the line, but from what I heard later, she ripped into them like never before. She laid everything out. How they refused to pay for my college, how they always favored my sister, how they let me move out at 18 instead of supporting me. She said they had no right to ask me for anything, and that they should be ashamed for even trying. Then came the bigger wave. The rest of the family found out. Once my aunt started talking, the story spread. My grandparents on my dad's side called me and asked what happened. So I told them the whole truth too. They were shocked. Apparently, my parents had been asking them for money for years under the excuse of helping the kids. My grandparents thought they were splitting that help between me and my sister. When they found out it had all gone to funding my sister's endless failed businesses while I got nothing, they were furious. They called my parents and cut them off financially right then and there. They told them if my sister wanted to be an adult, she needed to get a job and pay off her debts like everyone else. No more handouts. I didn't even know my grandparents had been giving them money before this. It blew my mind how much my parents had lied to keep up the Golden Child Act. They pretended to everyone that they were supporting both kids equally, when in reality they were funneling everything into one and sabotaging the other. And here's the thing. The second their little secret got exposed, their perfect family image crumbled. Relatives who used to fawn over my sister started side-eyeing my parents. People who thought my mom was this amazing, selfless mother realized she'd been playing favorites the whole time. My sister, of course, blamed me. She fired off another message. I was airing dirty laundry and making the family hate them. Suddenly, I was the villain because I didn't keep quiet. Then she called no hello, just screaming, "You've ruined everything, you owe us. Those businesses were for the family." I let her rant for maybe a minute, then said, "Done." She got louder. Click. Blocked mid-yell. Best sound I'd heard in years. My parents switched tactics after that, but not to apologize. My phone lit up daily with guilt trips and rage. You've ruined this family. You'll regret cutting us off. You think you're better than us. You're nothing without us. They even dragged relatives into it, telling anyone who would listen that I was ungrateful and cruel. When that didn't get a reaction, they escalated. Angry voicemails, late-night calls, even showing up uninvited near my aunt's house. They tried every angle, begging, threatening, gaslighting. One day it was, "We're your parents. You owe us." The next it was, "Fine, don't come crawling back when you fail." Then I did something for myself for once. I bought a motorcycle, something I'd wanted since I was a kid but was always told was irresponsible. I rode it everywhere, hair whipping in the wind, blasting music through my helmet, not thinking once about their approval. My sister was living rent-free in my parents' house, mooching off them while they drowned in debt, and somehow I was supposed to be jealous. It was so delusional that it almost didn't even make me mad anymore. What did make me mad was her blaming me for ruining their reputation. According to her, the only reason the rest of the family was judging them now was because I aired dirty laundry. Like, no. The reason people were judging them was because they found out the truth. The years of favoritism, the college thing, the way they propped her up while tearing me down. I didn't make any of that happen. I just stopped keeping their secret. That's when the begging started. My mom sent another message basically saying, "Please don't cut us off. We know we weren't perfect, but we're still your parents." My dad wrote something about how we should stick together in hard times. And the funniest part, they tried to guilt-trip me by saying, "Think of your sister. She needs you." Like I hadn't spent my entire childhood being sacrificed just so she could feel like the center of the universe. I didn't respond to any of it. Not one word. Instead, I blocked them. Phone, social media, everything. I told my maternal grandparents that I didn't want updates about them anymore. I didn't care what excuse they had, what apology they crafted, what sad story they spun. I was done. The satisfaction I felt blocking them was something I can't even describe. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even revenge in the dramatic sense. It was a relief, like I had finally closed a door that should have been shut a long time ago. The rest of the family, meanwhile, had completely turned on them. My aunt wasn't letting up. Every time they tried to spin a new excuse, she shut it down. My dad's parents refused to send them another dime. The girl who once walked into every family gathering like royalty was suddenly just ignored. No one asked about her businesses anymore. No one cared about her big plans. They'd learned the truth. I heard from my aunt later that my mom cried on the phone saying she didn't know where she went wrong. And honestly, maybe that was true in her mind. Maybe she really didn't see it. But from my perspective, she knew exactly what she was doing. Every time she said it wouldn't be fair to your sister, she was making a choice. And those choices had consequences. My dad, he just went quiet. That's what he always did. He'd let my mom and sister run the show and then act like he had no say. But silence is still a choice. He let it happen. And he never once stepped in to defend me. So no, he doesn't get a pass either. And watching the mask crack, seeing the shift from arrogant demands to pitiful apologies, was kind of satisfying in its own way. Not because I wanted them to suffer, but because it proved what I always knew. They never cared about me. They cared about control appearances and keeping my sister on a pedestal. Once that crumbled, they had nothing left. That's when I realized something important. I didn't need to scream at them. I didn't need to confront them. I didn't need to get dramatic revenge. All I had to do was live my life, stay successful, and refuse to save them. That was enough. The irony was almost funny. They spent years holding me back to keep her on top. And now she was unemployed, drowning in debt, and being judged by the whole family. For once, the truth was out there. Everyone knew who they really were. They couldn't hide behind fake smiles and social media posts anymore. And honestly, that felt better than any revenge I could have planned. I kept hearing little updates not because I wanted them, but because relatives like to gossip. Apparently, my parents were scrambling to figure out how to pay bills without the money they used to get from my dad's parents. On top of that, the loans they had taken out to keep bailing my sister out were catching up with them. Debt collectors were calling payments were overdue, and they had nothing left to show for it except her trail of failed businesses. My sister was still refusing to get a job because she was too good to work under someone. She had another business idea she wanted to try, but nobody in the family was willing to fund her anymore. Even my grandparents on my dad's side told her flat out that if she wanted money, she needed to earn it. For years, they sacrificed me at the altar of her ego. They blocked me from shining, made sure my birthdays were smaller, stopped me from competing in things I could have won, and even refused to pay for my education because it might make her look bad. They made her believe the world revolved around her. And now she was living like it did, waiting for someone else to fix everything. Except this time, there was no one left to do it. What really stunned me was how my aunt and grandparents reacted. They didn't just support me, they went to bat for me. My aunt ripped into my parents. My dad's parents cut them off financially and praised me for building my own life. And my mom's parents told me to focus on my happiness. For the first time, I felt truly seen. My aunt was my rock through it all. You don't owe them anything, she'd remind me. And she was right. She's the one who saved me, believed in me, and gave me a future. And my sister. She kept sending little jabs through other people saying I was cold or heartless. They took out loans and some accounts were even opened in my sister's name. Now the calls weren't just going to them, they were going to her too. The self-proclaimed CEO who thought she was too good for a real job Couldn't even get approved for a cell phone contract anymore. While I was signing mortgage papers, she was still sleeping till noon in the same bedroom she'd had as a teenager. No job, no money, no plan. After everything that went down with my parents and sister, I focused completely on myself. I didn't want to carry their drama into my adult life. It wasn't easy at first. Cutting off your own family, even if they treated you like crap, leaves this weird empty space. But slowly, I started filling that space with people who actually cared. In the end, I didn't need revenge. Karma handled them.